Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Adat Yeshua, and it's our weekly blog for Shabbat and for other events and other topics that we look at. And we just want to bless you in the name of Yeshua, wherever you are, whether in the UK or around the world. Shabbat begins this evening, and this week, of course, it's the portion for Et Hanan. It's a good portion, and it's one which includes the review of the commandments, the 10 commandments. Of course, we know this, and they're written slightly different from the way that Moshe wrote them in Shemot, in Exodus, but we're getting in really much his view, his take and his spin on all of this. But it's not in particular I want to look at today. It's one particular command in this all. This is about Shabbat, and we're commanded to keep the Shabbat holy, dedicated, set apart for our God. He rested in creation. We copy him, mimic him in this, that we also rest from our own creative work. And one of the things about the Shabbat I find quite interesting is that there's a particular issue about lighting fire. And we might think, does that mean we can't cook or something else? And on one level, maybe that is exactly what we're talking about. But I think there's a deeper level to all of this. And the level I really want to focus upon is simply this. When the fire came down from heaven into the temple, as we know, it was God's own fire that descended, which begins to burn up all the offerings. It's meant to be a perpetual fire on the altar, which you've got to keep going. And that fire really represents, of course, for us, the presence of God in our worship and in the temple. He's at the heart of it all. It's very much his presence which needs to be there. And you add on to that idea that fire, that's offering on the altar, was meant to be brought into the tables of our own homes, that our own tables effectively become little mini altars in our own mini sanctuaries of our homes and our houses and our family. Then it reminds us again that we are meant to keep the Lord's presence in our homes and families, not just in our places of worship, quasi the temple originally, or synagogues today, but we're actually meant to take it out and into our homes. Which again begs an interesting question, because we're told that we cannot let the fire go out. We are told we must keep this fire alive. We must live our lives in such a way as that we are forever trying to increase, foster, feed the presence of God in our lives, rather than let it go cold, die, and his presence withdraw from us. In other words, our lives, homes, families, synagogues, temple, must operate in such a way that it actually encourages the presence of God to come in. Now, we can discourage it, we can quench the spirit by our sin in our lives, by our attitudes and so on, but we can force the fire of God out of our lives if we choose to, quasi his presence as well. And then you connect that with an idea that you're not allowed to light a fire on Shabbat. What does that tell us? It's possible to get to Shabbat, and you reach that time and that place, and God's presence isn't with you, whether it's because of sin or whatever it may be during the week. You've walked away from the Lord, you drifted away from the Lord, and you can get to Shabbat and you haven't got his presence. We're not allowed to light a fire on Shabbat. The message I think that comes through with all of this is that when we get to Shabbat, we need to be prepared and ready to worship and enter his presence. That means we must be fostering that spiritual walk and closeness and relationship with him during the week, that when we get to Shabbat, we are ready to worship and enter that presence. Quasi, it's too late on Shabbat. You rock up at the synagogue on a Shabbat morning and think, oh, where is God? Where is God? It's almost too late at that point, effectively, to start, what are you trying to do? Manufacture the presence of God in your life? You need to be well down that road before we even get to that point and that place in that weekly walk with the Lord. It reminds me, of course, of the parable of the 10 virgins. Half of them were not ready. When Yeshua was returning, they were not ready. They didn't have the oil. And what did they do? They had to go off and try and buy some, try and find some. It's too late. Too late, the door was shut. The ones that had the oil, the ones who were prepared, the ones who were walking in that relationship with God, with the Spirit of God in their lives, the ones that were filled with the Spirit, if you want to see it that way, they were the ones who were ready. They had fostered that relationship and closeness in the presence of God. They had drawn close to God, and when Yeshua then comes, they are ready. It's too late. At that point, when Yeshua is coming, it's too late. You haven't got time to build that presence of God in your life anymore. You haven't got time to rebuild that fire. Just as we're told that we're not allowed to light the fire on Shabbat, we have to have it lit before, that we are ready on Shabbat to worship and to praise. It's not good enough to come on a Shabbat and then begin to frantically build up in some way, a way that you can reconnect with God. You've missed half the service before maybe you're even entering his presence in a way which is worthy to worship and to praise. What a shame, because you didn't arrive in the right way. Now, this is the way we can understand it too. Not to light a fire on Shabbat, connect it with the fire of God on the altar, his presence in our lives, in our homes. We need it. But it's no point trying to lay some sticks together at the last minute. That has to be done beforehand, the preparation, the work, the spiritual discipline to walk with God in the right way. All of that has to come before, and then that fire is healthy and it's burning in a good way in our lives, able to attract others, ready to lead us into that place of true worship. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for listening, and we'll be seeing you soon. Bye-bye. Litrot. Bye-bye.